It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas. We just can't stop playing that song every time I'm on. Well, can we fix that? I mean, we play it 2-3 times an episode. Not my choice. I got like 40 songs in there. All right, let's get serious in a moment. Webster, tell people the history of the SDR. When I say it had its coming out party at the G20, it's when it was really announced that they'd no longer be giving out dollars and they'd be distributing SDRs to third world nations. They immediately, I think, gave $40 billion to Mexico. After that, tell people the history of this currency. We got Webster still?
1974 oil crisis, and at that time it was called paper gold. It was supposed to supplement the gold stocks of the world by creating something that obviously was not gold. It was paper, but it was like virtual gold, I guess we'd say today. That was then changed to a basket of currencies, which I think is the basis of the SDR today, is the basket of currencies. But the attempt is now to make it more and more autonomous in its own right. You mentioned the G20. That was one thing. I think equally important was this semi-annual meeting of the International Monetary Fund in Istanbul, Turkey, over the last week. And at that one, I think you could see what the IMF is aiming at. The head of the IMF is this guy, Dominique Strauss-Kahn. He's a former French finance minister in the Chirac government, I guess. And he's now the head of the IMF, right? Traditionally, the head of the IMF is from Europe. A lot of French have been heads of the IMF. So Strauss-Kahn's line is, you need to have a lender of last resort for all central banks. So the central bank of central banks, the IMF, in his view, would become the top central bank of the world, above the Federal Reserve, above the European Central Bank, above the Bank of Japan. People may know about the Bank for International Settlements. That's been the central bank of central banks over the past 30 or 40 years, or going back to the 1920s when it was founded. But the Bank for International Settlements is mainly Europe, the U.S., Japan, the older, richer countries. So what Strauss-Kahn is saying, I can be the central bank of central banks for the world, which is a huge power grab. It would include regulatory functions and then this notion of the lender of last resort. In other words, if you had a panic run on the Fed, which you did have in 1933, with banks trying to get their money out of it to save themselves, then at that point the IMF could step in. But of course, when they step in, what they always want is conditionality. They want you to sign a letter of intent which says deregulation, privatization, union busting, destroy the state sector, right? What some people call, in this country, call the freedom agenda, but it's not. It's called IMF shock therapy. And everybody else in the world knows that it's deadly, and it always has been. It's always failed. So what Strauss-Kahn would be able to do is to dictate that kind of insanity to all of the countries that would have to turn to him for money. So that is really sinister. That's a world government right there. That's much more immediate and realistic than any stories about Ameros or anything like this.
So you think we're a long way off from, say, a physical world currency, despite Medvedev showing, just a display of what a model would look like? You don't see that coming anytime soon.
The thing, it takes a certain array of functions. You've got to have something like the U.S. Treasury market, which is a huge, huge market for bonds and shorter-term notes. It's extremely liquid. It's essentially the same as cash. There's always a bid. There's always an ask. You can always sell it. The fluctuations are at least visible. There's never a situation where you can't sell something. You've got to have a series of things like this to make it a reserve currency. I don't think any one currency can do it. The dollar
Tarpley.net, Tarpley.net. We'll be back after this. It's the Infowarrior. My guy's playing a little bit of a prank on me right here. It's Jaron's Greatest Hits now playing as my bumper music. He often likes to curl up to a pillow in a nice Nancy Drew novel and cry himself to sleep at night to this music. It's the board ops I have to deal with, folks. Let's get back on more of a serious note. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas on this very special Thursday, October 8th edition, 2009. What is this? I mean, if you're going to go corny, go Barry Manilow or something for me. I mean, give me some kind of semblance. Richard Marx? I mean, seriously? This wasn't even one of his big hits. Jaron seems to know all the words, and it looks like he's taking off his top. What is going on? I mean, I've got another 4 minutes on the radio before I make him put his clothes back on. Oh, there go the pants. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Apparently, that will also be his Halloween costume this year. All right. We just got off with Webster Tarpley. If you missed any of that hour-long interview, I want to remind people you can grab the podcast after this program over at www.theinfowarrior.com, or you can see the entire video over at prisonplanet.tv. We archive everything. That's right, we archive everything. In the light of Tarpley leaving us and all this financial news, I want to read this one out of the Telegraph. Britain overtakes U.S. as top financial center. The United Kingdom has overtaken the United States to take the top spot in a ranking of the world's leading financial centers. I got news for you. We're not even number 2. Let's continue. The ranking, compiled by the World Economics Forum, places the UK at the top of a leaderboard of 55 of the world's largest financially focused countries. The US, which had previously held the top spot, slipped to third behind second-placed Australia. The poll will fuel the ongoing debate as whether London or New York is the best place to do business or financial communities. Well, what about Australia? I mean, maybe Sydney is in the mix now? I don't know. I've never been to Australia. I'm just reading off a piece of paper here. Amid recent reports that a growing number of hedge funds are moving to New York due to lighter regulation, the ranking came in spite of the distinct problems in the UK's financial services industry and has suffered in the last 12 months at the hands of the global financial crisis. Oh, boy. Look, it's not good news that the dollar's dying. It's not good news that we're now third on the list of top-ranked economic countries. It's not good news that 9.8% admittedly are unemployed. If you listened to my interview last week with Bob Chapman, he will tell you that it is much, much higher. Another sign of the times in the horrible economy here at home, Los Angeles considers free parking to stop film crews leaving. I mean, they're openly announcing that California may be the first failed state in this country. And when a city like Los Angeles or New York stops charging for parking and gouging people coming in or working there, which it does daily. If you've ever been to New York City and you're lower in Manhattan, you're looking at somewhere between $20 and $50 to park your car for the day. And now they're saying, all right, we're totally screwed here in L.A. We don't want film crews to leave. We're considering free parking. Under the plan, production crews would be allowed to use parking lots around the city at weekends and in the evenings. More power sources would be provided so filmmakers don't have to bring their own generators. The scheme being considered by the city council also includes offering tax credits to owners of buildings who allow them to be used as film locations. And another headline out of there is that more apartments are vacant than ever in this country. People can't rent a home. People are losing their homes. They can't afford to rent. They're hitting the streets. It's unfortunate, but it's true. We can't just, smile and act like everything's going to be okay. We live in America. Yay! America, America, America. Meanwhile, the majority of people out there, again, cannot tell me the three branches of government. I mean, I cannot emphasize this enough. When we're out at the G20 on Luke Rudowski of We Are Change is bullhorning a group of students, and the one punk-ass student is sitting there going, do you have a job? Do you have a job? Do you have... Yeah, he does have a job, and he goes to school full-time, and he still makes time enough to figure out what's going on in this country. Here's a little disco beat I like. This is the music right here. Anyway, we'll be back after this. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas hitting up a big stacker of the latest. Infowars.com, prisonplanet.tv.